bicycle is probably about one of the best things that as a planet we've managed to make, you know. Aesthetically beautiful, mechanically beautiful, efficient, quiet. It's a great thing to be involved with. Then they have this extra kind of life where they can carry you to wonderful experiences.
What I like about the design is just it's very simple, it's minimal, and when you know that bikes exist for so long, people are still using them even like 2 centuries later, so that must mean something.
We're going to make a bicycle. We're going to make it as beautiful as we possibly can. There's going to be a unique head badge made that is going to be smelted from iron ore that's been gathered from within the city limits of Sheffield.
We thought that would be a good way to celebrate the Tour de France coming to Sheffield by turning a bit of Sheffield into a bike. It's all around us today, iron and steel, and it's perhaps not widely known that it does start life off as an ore or a stone. We're here in Smithy Woods. As the name would suggest, it's an area that's historically quite important in metallurgy. There's bell pits all around us. They've been created by people who are looking for iron ore, and we've been lucky enough to find some ourselves today as well. The challenge really with smelting iron is getting from the iron ore, which is effectively a rock, to metallic iron. And that process is called smelting. People have been using and making iron in this country from approximately 800 BC. Prior to the invention of the blast furnace, which is how most iron is produced these days, they used something called a bloomery furnace. We don't really know still what bloomeries look like in their earliest forms because the superstructures don't survive very well over these hundreds of years. A useful way to try and understand a little bit more about the process is to do a replicative experiment. You can learn more about ancient technology rather than just studying what little remains of it by doing an experiment and recreating it. A bloomery effectively functions by trapping lots of heat, so insulating using clay, and also restricting airflow and therefore creating carbon monoxide by the improper burning of charcoal. And then it's bellowed, which is crucial to the process to get it hot enough. Then you can start adding charges of iron ore in the top, and as the charcoal burns away, the iron ore travels down the furnace, and once it reaches the fusion zone, which is the hottest part of the furnace, it will basically reduce from iron ore or iron oxide into metallic iron. As it reduces, a number of impurities in the iron ore form what's called a slag, which is a kind of viscous, sludgy kind of melted rock, and within this the iron also sits. And all taken together, this mixture is called a bloom. And that's what we've been trying to create using Sheffield iron ore. Another interesting thing about particularly iron is the idea of the blacksmith, the magic of it. There's also quite a strange link between blacksmithing and symbolism and magical otherness. Iron's got that link really, because it's quite a magical process.
It might be because I'm a blacksmith, but when I think of Sheffield, I think of steel. It's famous for steel. It's built on steel. You know, if you're a blacksmith, it's a great city to work in. Most things in blacksmithing can be done by an individual, but obviously it does help when you've got, for example, a striker. So they're the ones that do the heavy hammering. So for example, your striker would have a sledgehammer and they would be on the other side of the anvil. Me being the lead person, I would show my striker where to hit with a sledgehammer. So you have to get like the rhythm going, and you've got to trust your striker as well. If your striker's not following where you're telling them to hit, that could cause your work to be ruined. Yeah, it definitely makes the job easier and quicker as well. So obviously a sledgehammer's going to do much more than, you know, a £3 hand hammer. We get the bloom, heat it up to what we call a welding temperature. Usually a white heat, maybe with a few sparks coming off. Because if you don't get it to the correct heat, and then it's going to fall to bits. We'll then forge it, so, you know, hammer it, squash it all together basically, until we've got a nice sort of solid piece of steel. And then we forge it into the shape of the badge.
Sheffield is full of surprise. I think individual people are really driven here, and I feel like there is this kind of freedom. I always was an artist, I think. From when I was a kid, I always drew, and it's something I have in me, and I wouldn't say it satisfies me, it's just I have to do it. I have the urge to create. I grew up in the south of France, and I'm very familiar with the tour. Every summer growing up, there would be this thing on TV that I would be forced to watch. Each time I think about the Tour de France, I see these cyclists going uphill and struggling in the mountains. And so that's why in my design I included a mountain. Also, I thought the mountain was very typical from France. I also included the Yorkshire rose in order to combine Yorkshire and France with a laurel crown, which signifies a race, what you get at the end when you win. I've never been part of a team like that, so it's quite interesting to meet different people who do different things. I'm very looking forward to the end result because every single member has a different task.
You hear people describe Sheffield as used to be the steel city, or that the steel industry has died. There's probably more value to the steel that's processed in Sheffield today than there ever has been. It's moved away from the large volumes, low price, into the very high technology steels. Today, we're casting mostly aluminium, but of course we've got the Sheffield-made iron that we're going to incorporate into that. We're going to break the iron up into small bits so it mixes in well. We'll be pouring it very carefully to try and leave any waste material behind so it doesn't get caught in the badge that we're casting up. Sand casting is an ancient process. You can trace the roots of it back to the Bronze Age, so that's at least 2,500 years ago. What we'll be doing today is applying this very basic technique to casting the display head badge for the bike. The aim, of course, was to make a badge for the bike itself. The technique we've used to cast the large badge, to get the kind of detail we wanted, it probably wasn't going to be the best method. We've used a process related to 3D printing of metal. It won't, of course, replace everything, but there are areas where new processes like this can really save a lot of time and money and allow us to do things with materials that we just couldn't do before. It's not just about steel in Sheffield. A lot of the success stories can be traced back to new discoveries, new inventions, and creativity.
An eye on making, an eye on producing rather than an eye on consuming. It's important what it's doing, its place in the world. It wants quality, it wants a beautiful object. I've always looked at objects, and I've never looked at them in terms of like consuming them. I've always looked at them in terms of I want to make that object. I want to be able to create that object. I was talking to my mum a while ago, and she said she can't remember a point in my life where I've not been in the middle of making something. I guess this love of making and then this, I would probably say, obsession with bicycles and cycling just converged. Well, every bike starts with a rider. We make a drawing. That becomes my blueprint to select the tubes, the raw tubes, and to start cutting the joints or the miters where the tubes fit together. I like the fact that I've got a known quantity to operate within. Literally, I've got a framework to work within, and I can kind of art direct or engineer or craft the details within this kind of known quantity. With a bike, there's certain points of no return. You know, when I start to braze a frame up, all the steps that I've gone through to get to that point have got to be perfect. When I'd light the torch and I'm going for it and I'm in that kind of 45 minutes of brazing, you need to be completely focused on what you're doing. If it goes wrong, it's scrapped. When the frame's complete, it's cleaned, and then the painting process starts. We don't use any stickers or anything. Everything is paint and everything's masked, and every frame so far has had its own unique design. And then the bike's built, all the components come together, and the satisfying bit is when you hand it over to somebody and they ride off. I really like when there's a narrative attached to a material. So the fact that it's all from the city limits, it just makes that little piece of iron a really unique trophy of an event, you know, that's got all this, the narrative and the story and the effort and the shared experience literally kind of smelted into that material.
What makes Sheffield is lots of just nice, collaborative, open people.
When they come here, they seem to stay, so there must be something nice about Sheffield.
Sheffield's full of happy, friendly people.
You don't find people like this anywhere else.
This is the city I choose to live in, and I want to be part of what Sheffield makes. I feel the responsibility of the things that I make here to be part of that legacy.